Hi everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the step-by-step florals challenge. Today is getting a lot more exciting. We are actually going to talk about layers and blend modes, and these two concepts are pretty much the key to creating beautiful florals on your iPad. To get started, we are going back to the gallery and we are choosing one of the canvases like this. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the layers. You can have a look at your layers palette by clicking on the layers icon here, and then the first thing we're going to do is just add some layers like this. So you can add as many as you like. The amount of layers you can create depends on the size of your canvas. So if you've chosen a really large canvas, you can have less layers. If you have a smaller canvas, you can have more layers. So this is just up to you to decide how many layers you will need. In our case, if you have chosen the square canvas, that's 2048 by 2048 pixels, you will be fine and you will not be running out of layers. So the first thing we want to do is rename one of the layers, just so I can show you how this works. So you tap on the layer and then you see the fly up menu and you choose rename, and because this layer is at the bottom, we call it base. And there we go. It's a good idea to name layers so it's easy to see what's on a layer, especially if you have a piece of artwork that is not that has low opacity and it's hard to see, so it's nice to be able to read what's on a layer. You can move these layers around by just grabbing it and then moving it to a different place in your layers palette. So the way the layers work is almost like your tracing papers that you would know from your lettering practice, and that means the layers above will hide what's below. So what that means is if I paint something on the base layer, let's say I just put a little bit of color down and then I select the next layer up, let's choose a different color, and then I paint over my existing color, it'll completely hide what's below. Now tracing paper obviously is not 100% opaque, so to simulate that you can change the opacity and then you'll see the contents of these layers will get adjusted according to your opacity. We have some more options with these layers. If you tap on the fly up menu, you can see we can clear the layer by just tapping clear, and then it cleans everything out. But as you can see, the base layer is still intact. So this is a great way of separating your art into different layers so that if you make a mistake, you don't have to start from scratch, but you can maybe just erase one of the layers and then create something new. Let's say I wanted to choose a different color and maybe paint in a different color like this. I can do that like so. And then another thing we can do with the layers, let's say we are happy with the way this looks and we want to keep it, so we can say merge, which means the two layers are now combined into one. And if I create a new one, you can also copy a layer and then you can paste it by going here, insert, paste from clipboard, and now we have the same layer again. This is also a good way if you want to keep, let's say, this layer intact and then you want to change this by maybe choosing a different color and painting over it. But now you don't necessarily like what you've done here, you can then always go back to your first layer as well. Then here at the bottom you have your background color. I don't necessarily look at this as a layer. This is more the background where you can change color. Let's say you want a black background, you can change the color like this, and you choose anything you like. But I would want to make it white for now. And then what you can do as well with this, you can turn it off and then you see how the background becomes transparent. Now the next concept with layers that is quite important to remember as well is something that we call alpha lock, and alpha lock can be activated by 2-finger swipe to the right, And now you can see how the layer thumbnail has got these little check marks. This means that all the pixels that were transparent before are going to stay transparent, and you can paint on top of these colored pixels without going outside the boundaries. So the way this works is, let's say we choose a different color and then we paint on it. So you'll see now, even if I paint over here, it's not actually going to fill the layer. It's only going to paint on the pixels that are already colored in from the layer before. This is very handy, and this is something we definitely want to remember. Now, equally important, what you can do with this is you can select the contents of this layer by tapping on it and then select. Now this creates a layer mask, so this is really helpful if you wanted to keep this layer the way it is, but then draw only inside the colored pixels of this layer, but on a new layer. So now I have selected this, which you can see now the stripy parts, which is my layer mask. So I select the new layer, and just to illustrate it, I'm going to choose a different color and I can paint on this. And you can see now how I can only paint inside of the selected mask like this. And then if I turn it off, and now let's say I turn the visibility of my layer off below, now only the pixels that were selected before have got color in them. Now the last thing I would like to show you with regards to layers is how you can create layer groups. This is actually really handy as well to organize your artwork in a nice way. So the way to create a group is select a layer, and then on the layers you want to group, you swipe to the right like this, and then you'll see how this little icon appears. You tap on it and then it creates a new group which you can expand and collapse like that. And then also this is nice because you can turn the visibility of the whole group on or off, and also you can move the whole group as one piece as opposed to individual layers inside the group. Cool, now that we have got the layers sorted, let's talk a little bit more about blend modes. You can get to the blend modes by tapping on the N letter here, which reveals the blend mode palette. Now, the theory behind blend modes is very mathematical. So the way this works is that depending on the blend mode you choose, a different mathematical formula gets used to decide how to merge pixels on the screen. I'm not going to bore you with all the details because it's boring and I don't remember everything all the time. But what is important is to have a look at the groups, the name of the blend modes, because I think this is actually much more practical to remember. So you see here we have got dark and light and contrast, difference and color. And for the purpose of our watercoloring exercises, we are mostly going to work with the multiply blend mode and the color burn blend mode, but feel free to play with some of the other ones as well. So I'm just going to show you a few examples of how this works. Now I'm going to turn off this layer and I'm going to create some new ones just so I can start playing with it a little bit more. And I'm going to start by painting something with my soft brush. I'm just going to put a little bit of color on my canvas, and then I'm going to create a new layer and choose orange and paint on top of that. And this is similar to what we have seen before when we painted the different or play with the different layers, but this time what we're going to do is change the blend mode. Let's see what happens if we change it to multiply. So now you can see the the colors between the two layers blend together like this. You can try out some other ones. Let's see, color burn creates a different effect, and then overlay is something that you might want to play with as well. And yeah, just play with them and see how they turn out. So the way the blend mode works, sometimes it's not very predictable because it really depends on the color, the colors that you choose and the lightness and darkness of the different colors and the different layers. So It's a little bit hard to predict, and that's why I always suggest to just try it out and see what happens with your blend modes. Now, when we are going to do our watercolors, we will work mostly with the multiply blend mode. So now for today's challenge, and as an exercise, what I would like you to do is create a few layers and then paint different colors, different shades of colors on your layer. So let's say we do yellow. We just paint a few different shades of yellow on the same layer. And then maybe some of the pink colors as well. Some darker ones. And maybe the green as well. And the lighter green. And now change the blend mode to multiply, which nothing happens. And the reason why nothing happens is because there is nothing underneath this layer. So because we've turned off the visibility of these layers, and this layer is empty and this is white, nothing happens with this. But now let's do something different. Let's choose a new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, and now try and paint with these colors on top of this layer and see what happens. Now let's see if we paint green here. You can see now how the colors mix differently depending on the color that's below. So this is what happens when you paint with green. Now let's create another layer and change the blend mode to multiply, and now we're gonna choose pink and see what happens. And now you can see how these colors blend together using the multiply blend mode, and you can also see how different colors get affected differently. So for example, the lighter yellow almost doesn't have any effect, but then if I choose more orange, it'll become a lot more visible how these colors blend together a little bit differently. So now this is your challenge for today. Create layers, put down some color and try out different blend modes. Alright, have fun and I'll see you tomorrow.